By the end of this presentation, my goal is that you'll have a really good basic understanding of DISC, and you'll not only understand yourself, but you'll be able to identify like DISC in some other people too. So if we can hit the next slide, we're going to start off with a little competition, because who doesn't like a little bit of competition?
Oh, I'm so in for this.
So normally when we would do this, we would actually have this puzzle in front of you, but we're going to do it right now to where it's on the screen. So you're going to have to really focus in here and, pay attention, because we're going to have a competition where I'm going to ask you guys to find the numbers in consecutive order, and we're going to go for 15 seconds. So you're going to find the 1, and then you're going to look for the 2, and then you look for the 3. We got it?
Yeah.
Ready? Go.
Got it.
We're going to see how far you can get.
Oh. I thought you said find 1, 2, 3. That was pretty easy.
No, you got to keep going as far as you can.
Oh, I see.
We're going to give you another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, I gave you 20 seconds instead of 15. So type in the chat how far you got. Oh, I like it. Look at these numbers.
Oh, you're all overachievers.
17. Is 17 our record so far?
Wow, that's pretty good.
Okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, now 84. Come on, Maria. All right, 17 is the highest. That's pretty good. All right, now let's go to the next slide. I want you guys to take a look at something here. In this slide, we're going to do the exact same puzzle. You're going to get 20 seconds again, but it's a pattern. Okay, so 1 is in the top left quadrant, 2 is in the top right quadrant, 3 is in the bottom left, 4 is in the bottom right, and it repeats like that. Okay, so we're going to go again, see how far you can get. Go. Okay, we are halfway there, people. Halfway there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Type your answer in. Type your answer.
Yes.
Okay, so Brandi, my question to you is, did you get higher?
I more than doubled my score.
Okay, that's good, because I was going to say if you didn't, then you shouldn't admit that. Okay.
I know, but I was laughing too, so that was interrupting my ability to see the numbers.
So it looks like some people might have still had a low number, but it looks like everybody went higher.
Sue Ryan, did you get 12 in each one? Sue Ryan.
Sue probably she said
yes.
Okay, Sue, the consistency is a really great factor there.
It is awesome.
So you might be thinking, like, why are we doing this puzzle to start with? It's just a little friendly competition, but it actually has a meaning behind it. So when we talk about DISC is about patterns of behavior. So this is what DISC is, and this is what DISC isn't. Okay, so it's all about understanding patterns. We didn't do any puzzle training in between those two puzzles. We just showed you a pattern, and you improved dramatically on the second puzzle. It's the same thing we're going to do tonight. We're going to show you patterns of behavior, and you're going to be able to identify those patterns a lot quicker once you know them. So the other thing about DISC, it's about behavior and not about personality. You guys might have done something like Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders. Those are all really good things, but they're different in that DISC is about behavior, and we can all choose our behavior in different situations. There's no right answer to a DISC. When you take a DISC assessment, there's no right answers. There's no great profile for a coach or an athlete. You're going to see we're going to need every single part of this DISC profile in order to put a team together to be effective. So now that you kind of know what it is, let me tell you a little bit more. So we can go to the next slide. So there's two main axes, how do you say that? Axes in DISC, okay? And so there's two sort of big parts of your behavior that come out. So if you look at this as a top to bottom, so the top is the C's and the D's, and the bottom is the S and the I's. Okay, so we're going to talk about the priority of those two groups. If you are in the D's and the C's, your priority is the task at hand. If you are in the S or the I, your priority is the people. And it doesn't mean that D's and C's hate people or that S's and I's can't complete tasks. It just means when it comes down to making decisions about what's more important, D's and C's, the task is more important, and S's and I's, the people are more important. The second axis is about pace. And when we talk about pace, we're not talking about like speed on the field, but maybe the pace at which you process, sometimes the pace at which you move, the pace at which you think. And there's two axes. So the D's and the I's are very outgoing and fast paced, and the S's and the C's are a little bit more reserved and a little bit slower paced. So a good example of this, I have an assistant coach. I'm on the fast pace, the right-hand side for me, and he's on the opposite side. And we'll walk to our dining hall, and I swear to God, like I start walking, and by like halfway there, he's like 20 yards behind me. And I'll like even try to slow my pace, but like he's from Hawaii, like that's just his pace, you know, like he just moves slowly. But I think you see it even more in when you talk to someone, and there's people that need to have a little bit of time to process, and there's people that'll give you an answer right away. It's not that one is better or worse, because when the people answer right away, maybe they're not having the most thought out answer. But obviously, like there's situations like in soccer where quick thinking helps. So it's, again, this is where it comes down to where you need both. Okay, so pace and priority are the two things that we're talking about here. All right, next slide, please. So this is going to talk, this guy is Robert Rome. He's a pretty funny guy. He's going to talk about how pace manifests itself in people's actions.
All of us are wired with a certain way that we do life. Our people, if you stand next to them and listen real carefully, you'll hear their motor. It sounds like this. That's just the way they're wired. If you listen to a person who's more reserved, their motor sounds like this. And occasionally they get excited. It sounds like this. Now, until I understood that, I always had difficulty dealing with people who are more reserved. My attitude towards them was, come on, get fired up. What's wrong with you? And they looked at me like, what are you on?
So I know I've had that experience a little bit. You know what, you look in locker rooms when you let people listen to their own music. This is a really good indicator of that. So you have some people who have their headphones on, and if you could hear their headphones, it's like super like low key, like getting them ready music. And then there's the people who are having the dance party in their own head or in their headphones. And so again, it's just about the pace side of things. So we're going to start by talking about the D's. So if we can look at the next slide, like a D is a person who really takes charge and kind of is directing people. So I tried to find images from our teams in the past and current of people who are demonstrating that type of behavior. So this is somebody sort of letting us know what's happening next. And this next video is going to kind of describe the D's. So what I want you to do is, as you listen to these videos, see how like strongly you identify with each of these. So if we're going to listen to the D first, you may listen to this and think, oh yeah, that's totally me. Or you may listen to that and like, that's totally the opposite of me. So let's start with the D's and see where you land.
D styles are the most forceful and assertive of the 4 disc styles. D styles tend to be direct, results-oriented, competitive, and strong-willed. Ds prefer to move fast, take risks, and get things done immediately. They like challenges and are multitaskers. D styles want to create change. Routine is boring to them. Ds want to be in charge and have the power and control. D's motto is, I did it my way. One of the D style's biggest fears is to lose control. D styles often communicate in one direction. They talk and expect others to listen. At times, Ds express their own opinions as facts, needing no further discussion or input. D styles may be blunt and challenge others. Ds are impatient listeners and have a tendency to interrupt. D-Style's favorite question is, what? What is the bottom line? What's in it for me? D-Styles want to make independent decisions and make them quickly. Since Ds don't need a lot of information to swiftly decide and are comfortable taking risks, they're more likely to make wrong decisions. However, D-Styles get over their mistakes quickly and move on by keeping the big picture in mind. Under pressure, D-Styles can show a lack of concern for others because they are focusing on the tasks. As a result, others may perceive D-Styles as being too aggressive, blunt, and even rude. At times, Ds can also be impatient and overbearing. Ds are often not good listeners and prone to making quick decisions. D-Styles have a tendency to overlook how their actions and behaviors affect others. D-Styles succeed by being decisive, taking risks, and focusing on the big picture, results, and goals. Ds are quick to take action, venture into risky and new situations, keep others moving forward, and are not hesitant to communicate their opinions. Continue watching the rest of the extended disc training series to learn more about the other styles.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Ds, and like just to kind of summarize what they talked about the Ds, these people, remember, from a pace standpoint, they're fast. From a priority standpoint, it's about the task. They're really decisive, they drive results, and they're the people who, a lot of women, especially women when you're younger, if you're a high D, then you're called the B word. So that's what sort of is the driving force behind them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you all, I'm going to tell you this scenario. Okay, we're going to put you in little breakout groups with, I think, 3 or 4 other people, and I want you to answer how you would answer this. Okay, it doesn't matter if you think you're a D or not. We're all going to answer this question about how you would respond. Okay, so here's the scenario. You go to Subway sandwiches, and you're going to make your favorite sub. You go down the line, you get all the right ingredients on it, it's perfect, and you're with your team. So you go sit down. After you sit down, you realize you've forgotten your drink, so you go back to get your drink, and when you come back, someone has taken a bite out of your sandwich. What would you do next? So at your table, I want you to just answer that question. What would you do about somebody taking a bite out of your sandwich? We're going to give you about 3 minutes to answer that question.
Go, have fun.
Okay.
Hello. All right, Becky. That was very fun. We had a very nice table who shared. And what
would you do, Brandi?
Well, I wanted to say that, you said we went to Subway, but I was thinking back to, I'm a very methodical food maker, right? I enjoy cooking. I enjoy making things. I feel like I pour my love into the food that I make. And so Allison said she would try not to be confrontational, and she wouldn't, want to make anybody feel bad. And I would have been like, how was my sandwich? Was it the best sandwich you've? I don't know what that puts me in, what category that puts me in, but no, if it were my brother, I would have been pissed. I'll tell you that right now, because he would always eat. Every time I had something good to eat, I would find him like hovering over it. But I think I would have probably laughed about it, but I honestly would have said that was the best sandwich you've ever had.
I think that might make you a little bit of an I, just saying.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. Awesome.
All right, so I think the question is, are we going to be able to call in some people to share what they did, or are we going to, we're just going to move on to the next one?
I think we should call some folks out.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do that. Rachel, can we go back to, how do we do it? Can I just click on people, or will it be in the chat?
Here's what we can do. If you want to share something from your table or your feedback,
yes,
shout in the general chat, and I will be able to pull you up on screen if you are comfortable. So we'll pull up your video and you can share some feedback from our table. And if we don't on you and you'd like to, there are a couple more rounds of this, and we'll be able to.
I'm calling Carly out right now. So
right.
Carly,
come on down.
Carly didn't get back to me on anything I could use against, not not against Becky. You got to come up and share, because I think you were sharing about kind of what I was saying. If it was my brother, I would have been a little bit upset.
I want to hear from Carly too.
Yeah.
I think I kind of might know what Carly is.
All right, Carly, spill the beans.
Hello, hello. Hi, Becky. So nice to see you. Okay, so in ours we talked about, I said, if it's my twin sister, I'm probably going to be more on like the aggressive, but I think generally speaking, if someone ate some of my sandwich and it was really good, I'd probably be like fairly understanding and like cut it in half and share it. If it was game day and I needed like to really fuel my body, different story. Generally I'm like more of I lean more towards D or I, like midway.
Nice.
Yeah.
I hear you. I know what it's like. Game day is a whole different day.
Yeah.
Don't mess around on game day.
Yeah. We need
Game
fuel.
day
Our
is-
bodies need fuel.
I like it. Courtney says hangry playing is a nightmare. It's there definitely a difference how you might react if you're hangry.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Awesome. Carly, you want to share your experience with Becky as a player? Did you ever go through this?
Being hangry?
Yes. No. This
Definitely, she was definitely hangry.
Yeah, no doubt. Although UF's cafeteria was quite supreme. But yeah, I do remember going through the assessment like early on. It was so long ago. I'm like in my mid 30s, so I don't
You're
remember.
like 20 years old.
I went,
Look
thank
at
you so much.
Love it.
But Becky was a phenomenal coach. I only was there for a year because I ended up getting injured, but a lot of these assessments and conversations were super helpful for development and like really focusing on like the task at hand, and also just being more intimate and trying to understand kind of your personality, the way you handle things, the way like your perspective. I think it applies to a lot of areas in life.
Can you recall any recent moments where maybe you didn't think about DISC, but you probably handled something a little bit differently, knowing that you kind of understood maybe the scenario a little bit better because of this being in the back of your head?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think, so I run a growth consultancy, and I collaborate with women in soccer. But I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs like every day, and I'm constantly in, business situations where whether you're managing a team or you're negotiating a deal or anything like that, you have to be really mindful of kind of how to handle it. And I think I always kind of, as I learn and grow, I think when I was younger, I was very fast and furious, and I was like a strong D, and I was not trying to hear anyone's feedback or guidance, I think more so. Whereas like now I try to find a balance between, I'm definitely like a type A person. So I try to find like a balance between D and I of just like being considerate. But too many examples to think of one, but yeah, it's definitely applicable to like everyday life and business for sure.
And, Carly brings up a good point, because the one cool thing about DISC being about behavior, it's contextual, right? Mm-hmm. So think about this. If I asked you all that same scenario, so think about it if you were with a group of your teammates when you were a player, right? Versus if you were with a group of your teammates' parents and you were still a player. Mm. Because like what usually happens when I ask this question, like the really high Ds, they're fired up. Like they are not having any of this whole someone eating my sandwich thing. They're buying a new sandwich, or they're starting the inquisition to find out who it was. The I's probably think it's funny. The S's are like, I don't want to, get anybody upset about this, so I'm just going to pretend it might not have happened. And the C's are interesting because they might be pretty upset about it. They might not say anything about being upset about it, or they might just be like, I'm going to make sure that this part of my sandwich is not touched, but I'll eat the rest of it. So I think it's really interesting about how the behavior is contextual, but also like what Carly said, is you can flex your behavior based on what role you're in too. So it's not like it's not a personality thing, it's a behavioral thing, and you can choose that behavior at any time.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Carly, thank you for letting me call you out. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Thank you
So
much
nice
for
to see
being
you.
here. And Sandra, I see that you said that you would just give that whole sandwich to the next person and you get another one yourself. That's
She's a
okay
mess.
too. That's okay too. So Becky, let's go to the next one.
All right, let's hit it. So the next one we're going to talk about is eyes. And so eyes are the life of the party. So you can tell not only from these two that they're dancing, but the one on the right, Pam, she has a shaved head and lots of tattoos, which not that all eyes have this, but she's not afraid to express herself. And that's what eyes do best. So let's listen to the video on eyes.
Eye styles are outgoing, energetic, social, talkative, and enjoy being the center of attention. Eye styles like interaction with others and meeting new people, but do not like to focus on details or spend a lot of time alone. Eye styles are seen as very friendly, enthusiastic, and animated. Eyes are optimistic, positive, and good at influencing others. Social acceptance is very important for eye styles. They like to be liked and fear social rejection. Eye's motto is, I am a nice person and should like me. Eye styles communicate in a way that inspires and promotes their messages. They talk a lot, but not about details. Eye styles will avoid unpleasant subjects and may not always be direct. An eye's favorite question is who? Who is going to be at the meeting? Who's in this with me? Eye styles decision-making is relatively fast. Eyes are typically not interested in a lot of detail and supporting information. Eye styles decisions are often based on intuition, emotions, and are optimistic about the outcomes of their decisions. Eyes keep others in mind when making decisions because they prefer to make popular and favorable choices. Under pressure, eye styles can appear disorganized because they focus so much on people and being accepted that they may overlook details and tasks. Eye styles can also be seen as overly talkative and emotional. Eyes may overpromise because they are so optimistic and eager to be liked. Eyes may be perceived as somewhat careless, impulsive, and lacking follow-up. Eye styles succeed by being positive, energetic, and enthusiastic. Eye styles add openness, generate discussion, and offer new ideas to move forward. Eyes connect people and create an enjoyable and positive atmosphere. Eye styles get others involved and excited to move toward goals. Continue watching the rest of the extended disc training series to learn more about the other styles.
So if I was going to summarize the eyes for you, I would say, like, if you have a player on your team, you're down 2-0 and they're like, you guys, we got this, we can do this. They're like super positive, optimistic that it can happen. But then at practice, they're kind of like, squirrel. You know, you can't really keep their attention focused anywhere. But they are great people to have on your team because they're connectors of other people. And they're very, very social. So in a team setting, they become really valuable members of a team. So this scenario is a little different, pretty straightforward here. I'm going to ask you to describe your ideal like night off. You've got nothing the next day, no work or anything. What is it that you would do with an evening off with nothing to do the next day? So we're going to send you to your tables and chat about that.
Make sure everybody goes to a table. If you get on a table that has a lot of people, let's see if we can spread out, but have at least 4 people at a location. Have fun. Rachel, can you hear me? Becky, we had dance parties and we had cool nights at home. Like we had, like, for sure the ones who were like, I am getting out of my house. Forget about this. I'm going wild. And sorry to throw you out there, Carrie, but she said she's going to shake what her mama gave her.
Well, clearly a high eye there, because we should have probably said pre-COVID as a precursor to that question. But what I was telling my group is that the highest eyes, their evening, like especially if you ask college kids this, they'll be like, well, it would start where we'd have some friends over at the apartment, and then, we'd have some drinks and stuff, and then we'd go to a club, and then after the club, we'd go to a bigger party, and like it just escalates like more people, more music, louder things, more activities, like the eyes get really jazzed by all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in my group also, if you want to share, it can be my group or anybody else's, you can send the chat. We'll pull you up. But in my group, it was, I have really long, hard work days, and to not look at my phone for a night would be like a dance party, right? It's like, that is my jam. So, some people craving that kind of like, I got to just chill out, and others like, oh, I have. Pip was funny. She said she would gather her crew and drink the night away. So.
Well, and the funny thing is, like the lower eyes, like they're gonna be like, well, a great night for me would be my pajamas and Netflix by myself, no one else. And there's nothing wrong with any of those, like that's the beauty of it. There's nothing wrong with any of those, but I think it definitely speaks to that. I was going to tell you this example. We had these two players on our team that played in really close proximity to one another. One was a 9, one was a 10. So they had to have a good relationship. And the 10 was a super high I, and the 9 was a super high D. And so they come into my office, and the high D says, I don't think she can play in that spot with me. And I'm like, why? And she goes, well, she won't defend at all. And I was like, so, how have you influenced her into defending? Like, what have you encouraged her? And she's like, why do I need to influence her? Like, that's her job. So this is like very D behavior. Like, it's her job. She should know how to do it. And I said, well, how about like just giving her like a little pat on the back when she does do something good defensively? And she's like, all right, whatever. Like you could tell she thought it was the stupidest thing ever. So the next day we were out playing, and the high I like does something really minor, like maybe checks her shoulders and like pinches people in or something, like nothing big deal. But the high D was like, hey, like, great job, way to defend. So then the high I was like, oh, like I'm going to do that more, And so it just like the motivation of the D is like, the task is she needs to defend. The motivation of the I is like, hey, give me a little positive feedback for that, and I'll do that all day. So it's different.
Excellent. Hey, I want Shannon Noble to get called out. Shannon, Rach, can we get Shannon Noble into the here? I liked her comment in the chat. Hey there, Shannon. I like your comment. You want to share it and explain it?
I said that I wanted to go out to dinner in a restaurant with my friends where I didn't have to load the dishwasher after.
So you're the responsible one in the household.
It's just me, so.
Well, there you go. So when you have to do you do everything.
Background of this household.
Yeah, you do everything. No wonder. I get it.
Shannon, let me ask you this. If you did share an apartment with somebody, are you the responsible one?
Yes.
You're the S. She's the S.
That's awesome.
She's a perfect segue into our next one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Oh, Sue Ryan. She says the answer is different based on your age, okay? So I just want to say, Sue Ryan, you are an I. And you're going to be an I when you're 80. You were an I when you were 13. Because I've seen you dance. And that was like last year.
We are going to get to Sue Ryan. All right, Becky, take this one.
Okay, so this picture for me is like the perfect S. So let me just give you a little context for this picture. These are two of our goalkeepers. The goalkeeper in the blue headband is a senior, and she is supporting the freshman who's just made her first start and got her first shutout and is threatening her job. So like, this is like the most beautiful example of S behavior in the fact that she is so supportive of someone who she's technically competing with in terms of position, but that's just her natural response is to be supportive. That's what the S stands for, is supportive. So let's listen to the video.
S styles are steady, calm, sincere, and laid back. While they do like interaction with other people, they're more reserved and less animated than I style. S styles are eager to help and support others. S's enjoy working in a team environment and often will loyally defend their own group or team. Fairness and justice are very important to S styles. They don't like to disappoint others or let them down. Since S styles prefer stability and security, they tend to resist change and may need support with it. S styles' biggest fear is loss of stability. S's motto is, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. S styles' communication is often one-directional. They listen. S's are polite and answer when asked. S styles are most comfortable communicating in one-on-one situations. S styles speak calmly, are good at building trust, and are patient listeners. S styles' favorite question is, how? How are we going to do this? How does this impact us? S styles are prone to be cautious and slower in their decision making because they consider the impact of their decisions on others. S styles commonly double check their decisions and often talk them over with someone they trust before making the final decision. S styles look for support and precedence and information to ensure they make the best decision. Since S styles have a tendency to be overly accommodating, under pressure, they become too willing to help and give in to the decisions of others. S styles frequently say yes too easily by putting the needs of others ahead of their own. S styles can also stubbornly hold on to the status quo to protect their sense of security. At times, S styles overestimate the amount of work involved. S styles succeed by being very persistent and maintaining a long-term perspective. While S styles are sometimes slower to initiate action, once they do, they are unstoppable. S styles get things done and ensure tasks are completed well. S styles execute reliably and consistently. Continue watching the rest of the extended disc training more about the other styles.
So if we had to summarize the S stands for supportive, and one of their highest values is harmony. And I want you to think about those two axes again. So an S, their priority is people, but their pace is a little bit slower. So I know that Brandi, you had mentioned you might want to talk to Evan about why he thought that goalkeeper was a really good example.
Yeah, Evan, would you mind joining? Can he join now, Rachel?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Evan.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, look at you! Look, that is like you got gamer mode going right now.
I know. I've got the gamer headset on, so
I love it.
How are you?
Thank goodness my 14-year-old son's not in here. He'd be like, "Dude, that is so awesome," and he'd be like, "Mom, when can I get that?" So, I saw your comment right away. You immediately commented on the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Share.
So a little bit of background. I went to Penn State. Actually, Becky, I think we met actually at a hotel in Stanford, California in 2014, maybe. I can't remember. My coach was Bob Warming, and he actually
That's right.
to me. So good to see you again. And of course, Brandi, great to see you. But yeah, that picture hits home. I've been in that situation where I'm the young guy, fighting for a senior's job, and then vice versa. When I was a senior, I got injured and someone came in and took my job. So I'm definitely, that hits home, being in that position. So just wanted to kind of say, love the picture, and I love that analogy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evan.
Yeah.
Becky, I wrote a note about, as we discussed things earlier in the week, about body language, right? And so body language obviously is a big component to our behavior. And is there a correlation between our body language and where we fall in DISC?
Yeah, I think that you're going to find Ds having the most difficult time controlling their body language, and sometimes Cs as well, although Cs aren't as reactive because their pace is a little bit slower. And Is are going to have body language that's usually in a positive way. Right. But I think that the issue for Ds with the body language is they're focused on the task. And let's say they're frustrated with somebody. It's going to be really hard for them to not express that frustration because the task is what's important and they don't really care about that. An S could have those same frustration feelings, but they're not going to show that because they are able to create that harmony, and that would not create harmony.
Got it.
So I think it's really interesting to think about it from that perspective, because what you actually see from people without them saying anything might help you identify what they are.
Right. All right, let's get to this scenario.
Okay, so this is kind of a good one because your best friend breaks up with their significant other. So now again, we're talking like a little bit of a college age population. So this is your best friend. He or she has just found out that, you know, the relationship they thought was going to be the one is over. What would you do?
Now, wait, I want to put this in the older category too. What would you do?
Okay, yes, you can
Everybody.
either one.
Yeah.
Either one.
Let's do this. I can hardly wait.
Because 7% of the population is D's. But what about the other 93%?
Oh, that is
so I
awesome.
think that was okay, I probably do need to flex my behavior a little bit.
Well, let's flex our behavior to the next one, and then we can kind of we can come back to that flexing your behavior and what does that mean exactly when we're done with this.
Okay, so this picture is perfect for C's. These are actually 2 C's that play on our team. One just graduated, one's on our team now, and they are like super analytical. They want data. They always want to see statistics because that's just the way their mind thinks. So the girl on the right is an engineer. The girl on the left, she has already like a master's degree and she's still playing for us, like super analytical, super bright. So let's listen to what the C's say.
C styles are the most analytical of the 4 disc styles. C's can be perfectionist, detail-oriented, and focused on facts, information, and proofs. C styles are comfortable working alone and are the most reserved of the 4 styles. C styles are logical, systematic, cautious, and methodical. C's focus on working with the existing circumstances to ensure high quality of product or service. C styles' biggest fear is criticism of their work. C's make sure that everything works the way it should. C's motto is, if we don't have time to do it right, do we have time to do it over again? C styles prefer written communication and to include extensive facts and details. They tend not to share their own opinions unless they know the subject matter well. C styles' favorite question is, why? Why does it work this way? Why is this step necessary in the process? C styles are focused on making correct decisions and avoiding mistakes. As a result, their decision making is exact and accurate. However, this can slow down their decision making. C styles can overanalyze issues and require a lot of information. Under pressure, C styles can be overly critical of others. They have a tendency to be so focused on the details that they often find small mistakes and errors. C styles' attention to detail and correctness may be seen as nitpicky by other styles, but C styles expect even more of themselves. C's can be very self-critical. Under pressure, C styles continue to gather more information to guide their decision and actions, further slowing down progress. C styles succeed by systematically focusing their efforts on the task at hand. They are not easily distracted and are focused on producing high. C styles approach tasks and projects well prepared. Frequently, C styles become very knowledgeable and skilled, even experts in their field. Continue watching the rest of the extended disc training series to learn more about the other styles.
So the thing I can tell you about these in terms of the axis, so a C is on the slower pace, but they are on the task priority. So C's are sometimes misunderstood too, and I'll give you a really good example of that. We had a player on our team that's a professional player now. She's a really high C, and we meet with every player on our team every week. So I had her in my group one week, and I said to her, I said, so what's the most important thing we should be talking about? And she sat there and she didn't say anything. And I'm like, I wonder if she heard my question, because as an I felt the need to re-ask it or give her some suggestions for what we might be talking about. And so what I came to realize with her as a high C is that because she was a slower processor, she needed some time and space to But when she gave me an answer, like it was like a super deep answer, like right from the start. It wasn't like surfacey and I had to dig more. It was like, okay, we just jumped right into it. And I think with the C's, the other example I can give you is like, think about this on your team. If you are running like a complex set piece, the C's know their job, they know everyone else's job, and they are really annoyed when people don't know their job because they are about the details. So this is a really important person to have. So the scenario we're going to give you on this one is kind of interesting. It's really broad, but I think it will reveal a little bit about the C's. So I just want you to describe what your thoughts are about having team rules and what does a rule mean? Sending you out.
Hey, I got a question for you. I got a question about where do D's land on the rules situation?
Totally depends on what benefits them in the task.
Ah, gotcha. Because I'm kind of like, I'm not a high D, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely a D. But I'm thinking about when I was a player, I wanted to know all the rules of the game so I could win the game. I would find a way to win the game, and nobody could have any argument about that I won the game. Because I knew the rules and I stayed within the parameters, and then I used all those rules to give me whatever flexibility or space I needed.
Well, that kind of brings up a really good point about motivation, right? So let's just, now that we've heard from D, I, S, and C, the rules question is a really good one on this. So if I am trying to sell the reason that we should have really stringent team rules to a high D, all I'm telling them is like, hey, if we have really good rules, it's going to lead to better results. They're on board. If I want the I's to buy into good rules, like to following the rules, I have to say, hey, people are going to like you a lot more if you follow the rules, and they're on board. If I need S's to be on board, I would just say there's going to be a lot more harmony in our team if we all follow the rules. They're on board. And then the C's, you don't need to sell them on the need for rules because they already think rules are very, very important. And like, they're like, how can we exist without rules? That's like a society without laws. We'd just be chaos.
I'd like to bring two folks into this discussion from two different groups, Madeline and Sue Ryan. I knew I'd get Sue Ryan. Sue actually got some props from some people in her group, so they nominated you, Sue. And Madeline, I liked the discussion we had. I thought that it would be beneficial for the rest. So since Sue's coming in after you, why don't you go ahead and share what we talked about?
Hi, Sue, as well. We're all on the screen now. Yeah, Brandi was kind of bringing up the point about evaluating the purpose of a rule or getting everyone on board with a rule. And I said that one thing, I played college soccer, but even now in my team professionally, I really try and emphasize that you shouldn't just do something to do something, or even because it's a precedent. You should always be monitoring your intention behind why you're doing any one action or following any one rule or protocol, and know that there's always a point to reassess and reevaluate depending on the needs of. So I think that you have to really just be intentional with action. I think there was a lot of times where we would find ourselves going through the motions, but we weren't actually really, our hearts weren't in what we were going towards or the rules that we were following. Maybe some people didn't agree, and so they were cutting corners. And so it was always something, and Sandra brought this up in our group as well, that like you just have to have an open discussion. You have to be open to reevaluation, and you have to really know why you're doing something, which I know is like a total C point, but yeah.
Awesome. I find I need to have a check myself on my intention and what my impact is in my parenting. That is also very, because my 14-year-old is very smart and good. That's a fortunate thing, but it's also unfortunate sometimes when I just want to say because it's what I said. So what is the purpose of the rule and its impact? So Sue, can we hear from you, please?
Sure, and I'll start with the teenage part. I have two 14-year-olds, and I do not use the word rule anymore because teenage angst. My son would purposely try to go opposite the rule simply because I use the word rule. And and then he would come up with a version or an aspect of the rule that I didn't say. So
I know
curfew at this time, but Mom, that was on the weekend. You didn't say anything about during the week, right? He's going to be an attorney, I think, because he's got like another piece of information. And so, and this links to my teams. What I said in my in the chat was, I have no rules anymore. I literally have no rules for I have 3 sets of teams, all different levels and ages. And I either have accountability standards, levels of expectations, or team packs. And what I can tell you is in some cases, the teams come up with standards that are more stringent than what I would have come up with. And then the older ones, they actually self-police. To some extent, they're more concerned about their teammates than me. And I could be the last one to know. So this has served me well. To some extent, again, it's a matter of semantics here. But as soon as I bring up, what do you want? Do you want to win the state cup? Do you want to just be 500? Right? It starts to put the conversation into, well, then we have to train twice a week. Or when we're here, people have to do X, Y, and Z. So I think players are different 5 years ago and 10 years ago from when I coached. And I will say that I think they hold computers in their hand. They have a lot of information and they know and can access things. So getting buy-in and engaging them in this process was really important to me. And I've had success rather than a list of rules.
my son said to me today, Sue, when I said, no video games during the school day. He goes, no, that's not the rule. You said during class time.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, are you really? My gosh.
And this is, I'm sure this is something that could be brought up with the different letters. When a rule is broken, my experience has been that has caused more trauma than the actual rule that was broken. The fallout of the team being divided, picking sides. So that was the other pieces. I could not have a rule if I didn't enforce it. Then it's the wild, wild west. But actually enforcing them with the appropriate, what would be perceived as the appropriate punishment or something was taken away, that was worse than the actual breaking of the rule. So that was the other piece, is if you make rules, I feel like you have to enforce them. There can't be a lot of wiggle rule. And that was actually one of the reasons, the impetus behind me changing the structure.
I actually find that to be really fascinating, and it has been working for me too with my teams, talking about individual and team accountability and going over, who are you responsible to? And I feel like they've all of a sudden just blossomed in this way, like being able to use their voice to share and remind and to care for each other has been phenomenal. It's just been really wonderful. And it could be age related, that they're 14-year-old girls. I'm not sure my 14-year-old son would find it the same way. He might, but it's been a great exercise for them. Yeah.
And for coaching women, that's important to me. That I'm not just the lesson of, I'm not teaching them just to follow what I say because I'm the adult or because I'm the coach, right? So me teaching them to follow the path that they believe and help create that path was an important aspect of the learning and the lesson as well.
Awesome. Thank you both very much. Appreciate that. That's very insightful. So Beck's giving you big snaps.
I am. And I think that we could probably have another Brandi's Corner on accountability and standards and all that.
Okay. You're in, Becky. You're in. We're doing it. It'll be soon. I'm going to write that down right now.
Well, and it's true because it's such a big topic, like managing behavior on your team is such a big topic. You could probably have multiple Brandi's Corners on that. But I do think that, when you're thinking back to DISC, like the kids on your team that are the rule followers are generally going to be higher in C than the kids who are always trying to push that envelope. And, people evolve. There's some kids, like I think I was a huge rule follower when I was really young, and as I got a little older and a little wilder hair, then I got to be a little bit more independent in my thinking. So again, it's just behavior at this point. I want to show you all a video that sort of summarizes the 4, and it's kind of funny. It goes back to our guy Robert Rome talking a little bit about the expectations about being on time.
Here we go. This will be a fun one. Expectations regarding being on time. This is, I've had people say this right here, help them create better harmony than any other 2. You ready? The D's. Is easy on self, but hard on others. If a D is late to a meeting, hey, cut me some slack. You ought to be glad I came. If you're late to a meeting, load the gun. The I's, oh, I love it, is easy on self and easy on others. Hey, I'm glad you came. I'm late, you're late. Let's go get a cup of coffee. What do you say? I didn't even want to come to the meeting, honestly. Look at the S. This one's powerful. You S's, oh, I love you. Is hard on self, but easy on others. Boy, and S, you don't have to be hard on them. They're hard on themselves. They'll do what's right. But if you mess up, hey, they're very forgiving, very forgiving. And C's, see if you can figure this one out. You got it, don't you? It's hard on self and hard on others. They're there on time. They expect you to be on time. Don't be late.
This is my favorite part right here.
He says to you, I'll be there in the morning at 8 o'clock. They'll be there at 7:30, ready to go at 7:45. Start at 8, right on the dot. If a high I says I'll be there in the morning at 8 o'clock, you know what that means? Nothing.
I think that's so true because, you know, like it's so hilarious. Like when I have meetings with players, or if I'm, you know, even coming out to practice and things like that, there are some kids who are habitually early. They're always going to be early. And there's some people who are like skating right in, right at the time that is supposed to be there, you know, and it's so true about how different behavioral styles in the disc follow that to a T. And again, it just goes back down to a little bit about motivation, pace, priority, all the things that we've sort of talked about tonight. And I think now that you've kind of heard each letter, what I want you guys to think about is, and this is a really, it's a little bit of a deep thought, but it's so true. Like if you look at each of these letters, their biggest strength can sometimes become also their biggest weakness. So what I would ask you to think about is, we're going to ask you at this point to go into tables where all the D's get together, all the I's get together, all the S's, all the C's. And I want you to think about the strengths and the potential weaknesses or opportunities for growth of all the D's. So the D's, you're talking only about the D. What are the biggest strengths of the D's on a team? What are the places where they might have some blind spots? And then you're doing that with the I's, S's, and the C's. Awesome.
All right, y'all.
This is where you got to look at the table where it's labeled on the table.
Right.
I love the S table. S's, I love you guys. You're my people. I'm not an S, but I appreciate S's in a big way. My mom was an S, the biggest S on the planet. So I have a soft spot for my S's.
That's awesome. Well, I scored as a D, but the D tables were full, which was very surprising. And so I took my next number, which was I, and then I confused it at first. They got, you know, I sadly called them a D when I knew they were an I. And then we got into a great conversation. And I feel like, you know, I'm I also, even though I'm D, I'm I at times. And
so that's a good point, because I didn't mention that at the beginning and I should have. We are all a combination of all four. It's just to varying degrees, you know, and there's probably going to be like two that might emerge. And like, for example, Brandi, when you say you're a D and an I, what that would tell me if I didn't know anything about you at all is that your pace for processing and all that is high. But there's going to be times when you have a task priority, and there's going to be times when you have a people priority, depending on if your D or your I is coming out. But your pace is consistent.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you explaining that to me. So now, when we were talking earlier in the day, I really felt that part of what I was hoping to get out of this, kind of what I said to my group before we left each other was, I feel like tonight was about who am I? Finding out exactly as much as we can who I am, and then how can I go out and share who I am, but also be willing to say, I can alter that a little bit. And it might be a little uncomfortable or it's not in my wheelhouse, but I see some of myself over here too. And I think that's really important. And then understanding people where they are. Gosh, if we don't need that more so than ever, I think that's, again, one of the messages for today is how important it is that we all accept who the people are for what they are. And then, now we can have really good conversations because we know where people are coming from. And I think that will lead, that listening that will go on will allow us to be more understanding and bring us closer together.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I've had a couple of debates with some of my friends who are really into DISC about. And it's like, the cool thing about DISC being about behavior is you don't put people in boxes necessarily. You can say what their behavior is, like that's D behavior or that's I behavior, but it's not like we can all flex our behavior. And so if I'm, a high C and I really have that need for data, but the data is not available, I can flex into an IS or D mode. And so I think it's about meeting people where they are, understanding what motivates them and how to get, but at the same time realizing that all of us have the ability to flex our behavior.